Welcome travelers. If you're wondering which characters are dominating the meta in Genshin Impact version 5.2, you've come to the right place. Today, we're diving into our freshly updated tier list, ranking the best of the best from both 5-star and 4-star characters. Whether you're looking for a powerhouse main DPS, a reliable sub DPS, or the ultimate support to keep your team alive, we've got you covered. Plus, we're rating every character at C0 for those of you rocking those sweet free-to-play setups, or just getting started. Stick around because this list is updated daily to reflect all the latest buffs, nerfs, and changes in the ever-evolving world of Teyvat. Ready to find out if your favorite character is top tier or if it's time to rethink your team comp? Let's jump in and break it all down together. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking characters in Genshin Impact. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Razor, Dihya, Xinyan, Aloy, Xinyan, Traveler Geo, Amber, Traveler Anemo, Traveler Hydro, Noelle, Chongyun, Lisa, and Xinyan. Oh boy, let's talk about some of the most interesting characters in Genshin Impact, the ones you might lovingly refer to as projects in progress. Today we're diving into the D tier, where dreams of greatness take a little longer, and sometimes a miracle, to come true. These characters may not shine as brightly as others, but hey, even underdogs deserve some love. Let's break it down and see what these champs bring to the table, flaws and all. Let's start with Dihya. Look, I get it. Her design, chef's kiss. Her damage output, not so much. Her elemental skill and burst require a buffet of buffs just to be serviceable, and her energy needs are, let's say, a bit needy. She's like that friend who's always borrowing your phone charger and somehow loses it. Oh, and unless you've got those constellations unlocked, she'll feel more like a work in progress than a reliable team member. Next up, Xinyan. Talk about a character with an identity crisis. Is she a physical DPS? Is she a shielder? The world may never know. Her elemental burst can pack a punch if you're running a physical build, but her split scaling between 80k and death is a major buzzkill. And while her shields can tank a hit or two, they're inconsistent, much like my luck with artifact rolls. Still, she can work for niche teams, especially with her C2 guaranteeing crit hits on her burst. Aloy is next, and oh boy, she's fine. She can buff her normal attack damage with her elemental skill, but getting those bomblets to hit the pellets for infusion feels like trying to herd cats. And let's not forget, no constellations, nada, zero, which means she's forever stuck in this okay but not great zone. Maybe one day she'll get some love from Hoyoverse, but until then, she's the definition of limited potential. Now, the Geo Traveler. Honestly, their elemental skill hits hard, and they can block enemies pretty effectively. The C4 constellation even speeds up their burst recharge. But let's face it, they're not the flashiest option. They're like the vanilla ice cream of Genshin characters. Reliable, but not what you're reaching for when you've got options like, say, Zhongli. And let's not forget the OG Amber. She's basically Genshin's unofficial mascot, but her utility is situational at best. Sure, her elemental burst applies AoE pyro, and her skill can taunt enemies away from your main DPS, which is neat. But unless you've unlocked her C6 for those sweet party-wide buffs, she'll mostly be hanging out in your teapot or firing off Baron Bunnies as a meme. So there you have it. Our D-tier underdogs. Sure, they have their quirks and limitations, but hey, sometimes it's fun to work with what you've got. And who knows, maybe one day, with enough love, patience, and mora, they'll surprise us. Or, you know, just collect dust in the archive. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Yanfei, Heizu, Clay, Kave, Kokomi, Freminet, Ningguang, Kachina, Keiya, Dehya, Liesa, Chongyun, Sayu, Kiki, Barbora, Traveler Electro, Rosaria, Candice, and Dory. Oh boy, let's talk about the C-tier crew. Those characters who are like that friend who shows up to help you move but spends half the time eating your snacks. They're not bad, they just need a little more effort to shine. Starting off with Yanfei, our pyro-powered legal advisor. She's great at dealing consistent pyro damage with her normal and charged attacks, but let's face it, she gets winded quicker than most, guzzling stamina like it's bubble tea. Her first constellation helps a bit, but she's definitely not your courtroom MVP. Next up, Heizu, the punchy Anemo detective who can dish out swirl damage like it's nobody's business. He's got 2 modes, quick swap burst dealer or a driver for viridescent Venera teams. Sounds cool, right? But here's the thing, his elemental skill is the star of the show and his other damage options just don't keep up. It's like he has a Ferrari engine in a go-kart body. Then there's Klee, the adorable chaos gremlin who throws bombs like confetti. She's incredible at crowd control and dealing massive damage if you can handle her quirky playstyle. Let's just say Klee isn't for the faint of heart. You need the patience of a saint and the reflexes of a cat to make her rotations work. But hey, if you're up for a challenge, she'll blow the competition and herself sky high. Moving on to Kokomi, our favorite non-crit healer. Yeah, her no-crit gimmick might feel like a betrayal to Genshin's damage-hungry meta, but she makes up for it by being a solid hydro driver and a self-sufficient healer. Pair her with Bloom or Electro-charged reactions, and she's got your back. Just don't expect her to hit like a truck, she's more like a reliable minivan. Let's not forget Dehya, the Pyro Queen who's better at helping others look good than stealing the spotlight herself. Her off-field pyro application is consistent, making her a solid choice for reaction setups like Burgeon. But unless you've got some constellations to spare, her personal damage might leave you wanting more. It's like she's a 5-star with 4-star energy, you know? And finally Kaya, the OG cryo swordsman who still holds his own, sort of. His low cooldown elemental skill is great for freeze and melt comps, especially if you're running a physical team, but while he's got style and utility, his damage scaling isn't going to blow anyone away. Think of him as your dependable first car. He gets the job done even if he's not the flashiest ride in the garage, so there you have it. The C-tier squad, flawed but fabulous in their own way. Got a favorite from this list, or maybe you think one of these characters deserves more love? Let me know in the comments. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Yoimiya, Ito, Kino, Keqing, Noelle, Eula, Cephos, Albedo, Ayato, Kokomi, Toma, Traveler Dendro, Lynette, Zhongli, Kirara, Mika, Sigurwinner, Layla, Seiyu, Shu, Toma, and Dehya. Alright, let's talk about the unsung heroes of Genshin Impact, those B-tier characters that somehow manage to both surprise you and make you think, wait, are they secretly amazing or just pretending to be? Because trust me, B-tier isn't a bad thing. It's like the indie darling of the meta, underappreciated but with some serious potential if you know how to work them. First up, Yoimiya. She's like your pyro-powered bestie who's great at lighting up single targets with her normal attacks. That infusion from her elemental skill? Chef's kiss for scaling. But here's the catch, she needs some solid support to keep her from getting knocked around and to amp up her attack speed. Get her a team that plays to her strengths, and suddenly, she's popping off fireworks like it's Liyue Lantern Rite every day. Then there's Ito, the Beefcake Geoking. If you're into spamming charged attacks and big boy damage during his elemental burst, he's your guy. But fair warning, it's a high energy party with him, literally. Without enough energy regen or the right setup, his damage potential kind of fizzles out. High investment? Absolutely. Worth it? That's a definite yes if you love seeing him slam that club down with style. Oh, and let's not forget Sino, Electro Hyper Carry with a flair for Dendro reactions? Yes, please. Aggravate, Hyper Bloom, he's all about those spicy combos. But his resistance to interruptions? Yeah, not great. If an enemy so much as sneezes in his direction, his rotation is toast. Keep him shielded, Zavo, and he'll shock the competition. Literally. Now, can we talk about Noelle? The queen of self-sufficiency. She's swinging her claymore, healing the squad, shielding like a pro, and scaling damage with DF. And if you've got her at C6, oh boy, she's basically a one-woman army. Pair her with a Geo Resonance team, and she's out here making you question why she's not higher tier. And let's give a round of applause to Kokomi, the I'm not a DPS but watch me anyway Hydro healer. Her elemental skill keeps the off-field Hydro application rolling, and if you slap the Clam artifact set on her, she's dealing damage while healing. It's like she's saying, who says I can't multitask? She's a dream in any Bloom or Vaporize team, and honestly, just fun to use. Finally, let's talk Dehya. Look, I know the internet has opinions, but hear me out. Her interruption resistance and damage mitigation are legit. Pair her with a high energy team or one that thrives on pyro reactions, and she becomes a solid choice for keeping your squad alive and dishing out the flames. Plus, she's got that fiery swagger that just screams, I do what I want. So yeah, B tier isn't some forgotten corner of the meta, it's where the characters with quirks and charm live. They might not always be top tier, but with the right team and strategy, they're absolute gems. Play around with them, experiment, and most importantly, have fun. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what Genshin Impact is all about? The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Chaska, Tartaglia, Xiao, Diluc, Ayato, Tignari, Wanderer, Ganyu, Venti, Ororon, Ganyu, Mona, Beidou, Colli, Rosaria, Sucrose, Goru, Ventis, Diona, Yunjin, Sara, Yao Yao, Charlotte, and Shinobu. Alright, let's talk about some of the best characters in Genshin Impact and what makes them stand out in the game. We're diving into A tier characters, the ones who may not quite be the absolute top, but still bring so much to the table. Trust me, you'll want these guys in your team. First up, let's talk about Chaska. She's one of those characters who shines in rainbow teams. Why? Because she can convert her damage into Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo, making her super versatile when you're trying to cover multiple elements. However, the catch is she's a bit reliant on having the right setup. She's also a flying character, which is huge in exploration, especially in places like Natlan. But her AoE can split damage between enemies, which means she's really more of a single target damage dealer than you might expect. Now, if you're all about vaporize combos, you gotta consider Tartaglia. His Riptide mechanic applies strong hydro damage, and honestly, he's probably the best driver for vaporize right now. So, if you like blowing stuff up with pyro reactions, Tartaglia's your guy. Pair him with a solid pyro unit, and you're in for some explosive damage. Moving on to Xiao, this guy is all about big damage, but at a cost. His elemental burst lets him ramp up his DPS, but it also burns through his own HP. Yeah, it's a trade-off, but when you can hit like he does, it's definitely worth it. His normal attacks and elemental skills allow for high damage combos, but make sure you've got healing support to keep him alive. Diluc, the fire powerhouse, is all about weaving normal attacks and his elemental skills. It's a super smooth combat flow that lets you maximize his damage output. Plus, his elemental burst is incredibly efficient with a low energy cost. The only downside, it tends to push back lighter enemies, so it's something to keep in mind when you're fighting smaller mobs. But with the right team, Diluc is a monster. And who could forget Ganyu? Her charge shots are legendary, especially at level 2, where they deal massive damage to mobs, especially with melt reactions. The catch is, it takes a while to charge up, so she's susceptible to being interrupted. But when it works, oh man, it works. Plus, her elemental burst is fantastic for crowd control, especially when paired with a character that can pull enemies together. Finally, we can't skip over Venti, the Wind Wizard himself. His crowd control abilities are insane, especially with his elemental burst, which pulls enemies in and deals massive swirl damage. His high energy recharge rate means he's also excellent at supporting your team with elemental reactions. But the downside? He struggles with enemies that are harder to pull in, which can be a bit annoying, but his overall utility is too good to ignore. These characters are A tier for a reason. They each have their unique strengths, and while they may not be the top of the food chain, they are definitely reliable, versatile, and powerful when used correctly. So, if you're lucky enough to pull any of them, don't hesitate to build them up. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Mualani, Kinich, Hu Tao, Navia, Laini, Raiden, Riofizli, Ayaka, Clorindi, Niluku, Fishcho, Yaemiko, Shinobu, Emili, Chiori, Raiden, Mona, Xianyun, Shenhei, John, Chevruz, Sucrose, and Faruzan. Alright, let's dive into some of the absolute powerhouses in Genshin Impact, the characters that take the spotlight in nearly every situation. First up, we have Mualani. She's like the secret weapon of vaporized teams. When set up right, she can dish out insane front-loaded damage, whether you're up against a single boss or a whole mob of enemies. The only hiccup? Sharky's bite can miss from time to time, but hey, even the best have their off days, right? Now, if you want to burn through your enemies with style, Kinich is your guy. Specializing in the Burning and Burgeon teams, he's got single target damage down to an art. His grappling hook is great for zooming around the map, but in combat on uneven terrain, a little tricky. And if he's not in the right team comp, you'll struggle to get his Scale Spiker cannon up to full power, so make sure to pair him with the right crew to maximize his potential. And then there's the one and only Hu Tao. This girl is a pyro powerhouse with damage numbers that'll leave your enemies burning in their tracks. With her elemental skill and charge attacks, she sacrifices a bit of her HP, but the damage is totally worth it. Plus, her C1 ability lets you spam charged attacks with no stamina cost, making her a beast in sustained fights. If you're not using Hu Tao, are you even pyroing, right? Speaking of damage, let's talk about Raiden. Her burst is absolutely wild, letting her stay on the field while dealing insane damage in just 7 seconds. And with her C2 talent, she ignores DF, making her one of the best DPS characters in the game. No wonder she's at the top of the tier list. She obliterates anything in her path with ease. Plus, her elemental burst energy regeneration keeps her team in top shape, meaning they're all ready to unleash their full potential. And hey, if you want a solid support with a twist, Jean is a fantastic choice. She's got great crowd control with her elemental skill and charge attack, plus an elemental burst that heals the whole team while keeping enemies in check. Her C4 allows you to shred Anemo RES, which is perfect for boosting your Anemo DPS characters. She's that flexible support you need in almost any team, and let's face it, healing never goes out of style. Last but definitely not least, Sucrose. She's the queen of swirling and elemental mastery buffs. With her elemental skill and burst, she can control enemies' positioning and boost your team's reaction damage. If you're all about maximizing your elemental reactions, she's an absolute must-have. And if you pair her with other reaction-focused characters, you'll be pulling off some seriously insane numbers. Sucrose's team utility is just off the charts, so yeah, these characters are all top tier for a reason. Whether you're aiming for raw damage, support with some flair, or making sure your team's reactions are on point, these S tier units will take your gameplay to the next level. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Neuvillette, Arlecchino, Alhaitham, Furina, Nahida, Xingqiu, Yelan, Xiangling, Raiden, Furina, Kazuha, Shalonen, Bennett, Nahida, Zhongli, Beiju, and Kokomi. Alright, let's dive right into the real stars of the show in Genshin Impact. I'm talking about the S+ tier characters, the ones that can completely change the game with their insane abilities and insane synergy. First up, we've got Neuvillette, who, if you haven't noticed already, is absolutely crushing it with his charged attacks. Not only does he dish out consistent damage, but he's also a one-man army, thanks to his incredible self-sufficiency. And don't even get me started on his C1 constellation. It's a game changer, taking away his biggest weakness and making him even more of a powerhouse. Then there's Arlecchino, who plays at an entirely different level. She brings crazy high pyro damage to the table, whether you're running her in a vaporized comp or just throwing her into an overloaded team with Chevrus. Her normal attacks are fast, they have massive AoE, and they're super easy to set up once you get her rotation down. The catch? She's all about high risk, high reward gameplay, which might scare off some players, especially early on, but for those who can handle it, she's pure gold. And let's not forget Alhaitham, a top tier Dendro character who is an absolute beast at setting up reactions. His Dendro application is perfect for triggering Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, and Spread, all while covering huge areas and boosting team damage. The best part? He doesn't need a ton of investment to make him shine, making him a fantastic option for both new and veteran players alike. Now we have Furina, and this character is nothing short of a powerhouse. Her elemental skill applies Hydro off-field for a ridiculously long duration, making her a beast for reaction setups. The damage scaling on her abilities is off the charts, but she doesn't quite outpace characters like Xingqiu or Yelan in raw Hydro application. Still, if you want high damage potential with great versatility, Furina is definitely someone to look out for. Speaking of Xingqiu and Yelan, these two are like the dynamic duo for Hydro reactions. Xingqiu brings in consistent off-field Hydro application with his elemental burst and skill, plus a bit of healing to keep you topped off. He's a perfect match for characters like Hu Tao and Xiangling. On the other hand, Yelan is your sub DPS stream. Her elemental burst sets up Hydro reactions like a pro, while also giving your main character a damage boost. She's also fantastic at energy generation, which is always a plus. Lastly, let's give some love to Kazuha, who needs no introduction. He's basically the ultimate support character, buffing your whole team with his swirl reactions, increasing elemental mastery and elemental DMG based on the elements he swirls. His crowd control is top tier, making him a must-have in any high-level content. Plus, his burst boosts elemental mastery in a large area, just another reason he's so valuable in team comps. So yeah, these S+ tier characters, they're not just good, they're game changing. Whether you're playing for insane damage, amazing support, or just pure fun, these characters are the ones you want in your roster. Trust me, they'll make your Genshin Impact experience feel like a whole new level of fun. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.